his coming will be like Lot, the time of Lot and the time of Noah. And one of the great things is when you realize that one of the theories that you have is wrong. Because if we don't have corrections to our theories, then we have to wonder, is our interpretation pushing the narrative? And when we see corrections to what we do, when we have to rethink what we're doing, it actually leads to an improvement. So it also says, we're not blind. That's the great worry, that we become blind with what we do. So last night, very late at night, I started thinking about Noah and Lot and what it would mean as a comparison to the next Exodus. And throughout the time I was sleeping last night, the whole night through, I kept thinking of Jacob, Israel, leaving to go to Egypt. So let's kind of walk this through, because it's going to be kind of interesting, and I'll tell you right now, it's going to change some of the prior things and certainly the prior theories that I've had on certain issues. Now, we know that those who are in the land, from Matthew 24, they're going to leave through the wilderness. The Mount of Olives opens up, splits in half. They go through it. They go out to the wilderness. That's how they leave. They leave before us. They leave on the abomination of desolation. Everyone else is going to leave about 4 days later on Passover throughout the dispersion, anywhere else in the land. And we have that from Deuteronomy 28:68, is that those who are in the land or outside the land will leave by boat or ship. So we know how we're going to be getting out of here. Now that can be expanded upon in Isaiah 11:14, which is in the Greek Septuagint, which will include an airplane. But generally it's a ship. And I hope you're seeing the comparison already between Noah and Lot. How did Noah leave? He went by boat. How did Lot leave? He left by foot. So we've got those who are in Judea, like Lot, and we've got everyone else who is like Noah. Now the interesting thing is, when Lot left, where did he leave to? He left and went up to Moab and Ammon, Jordan, because his both daughters then became impregnated by him, and they formed Ammon and Moab. So we know where he's leaving. Now, if you're leaving through the Mount of Olives, where would that put you? That puts you in Ammon and Moab. Kind of interesting that they're going the same way of Lot as they head out of here. But it becomes more important as we look at a few other things. So let's kind of walk through those other issues. Now again, Matthew 24:37 tells us the issue of Noah and Lot. Actually, Matthew tells us about Noah. Luke 17 tells us about Noah and Lot. Matthew 24:37, as it was in the day of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving into marriage, up until the day Noah entered the ark. It says the same thing in Luke 17, in verse 26 and 27. And then we get to Luke 17:28. It was the same in the days of Lot. People were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. Verse 29, but in the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. Now, can we find a second witness on this? And again, we come to the story of Israel, basically Jacob, as he leaves initially for Egypt. Now, Joseph, at that point in time, is already in Egypt, and Manasseh and Ephraim are already in Egypt. When he leaves, in Genesis 46:27, he has 70 people. Israel, 70 people going into Israel, including Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim. Now, that's very telling, because I hope people look and think, in Genesis 11, as it talks about the table of nations, we have 70 nations. And yet we have 70 people going into Egypt. Basically, I hope you can see the correlation. Is it one per every single nation group? I think it will be. Not one per. In other words, each nation group will be represented. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And this is where it really kind of blows this thing up. Judah went before the rest of Israel in Genesis 46:28. So let's read that. Because again, it's so interesting. Now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him. So Israel sends Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen when they arrived in the region of Goshen. So Judah goes first. What do we hear and what do we know from our Exodus in Matthew 24? Judah goes first. Those who are in Judea, the land of Judah, they are the ones who leave first. We will then follow. So, the other thing, see, as I looked at this, I knew we were all going to meet at Mount Sinai, but I thought, okay, well, they'll come at one path to Mount Sinai and we'll come another. But if I'm using this as a basis from Torah, I think my earlier thing was wrong. I think everyone is going to Egypt. Now, before I said I think there are 5 groups of us, and that hasn't changed. I think there are. I've said before that there are 144,000 that are known as first fruits, and first fruits is not just a name, it is a time. I have not varied in that perspective. It's just, are they going to Mount Sinai on that date, or are they getting to Egypt on that date? And it looks like they may very well get to Egypt on that day, be incarcerated early, and spend that full month in jail, waiting for everyone else to then finally arrive. And I think that fits so much more because then we're all in Egypt and we all come out together. We'll all cross the Red Sea together. And so what? So you have a 30-day jail sentence before you're finally rescued if you're 144,000. Great, amazing. We can all go through things for a short period of time. It's not a big deal. But I think it is changing my perspective, and I like the fact it's changing perspective and changing theories because that means that what I'm thinking is not overriding what I'm seeing, and that I'm willing to listen and not just be blinded. Again, it hasn't changed drastically, but it has given me some additional insight, and hopefully it's given you some insight as well.